everybody, and welcome to Masters of Real Estate. My name is Mathew Owens, a California licensed CPA and full-time real estate investor. And today I have Erica on the line with me, a unique guest that actually brings some of the mental wellness picture as well as has some real estate experience that we'll have some deep dive discussions about to kind of help everybody through the process of investing and the process of being an entrepreneur and the trials and tribulations that you go through mentally, but also some of the fun stuff that you get to deal with on the real estate side. So welcome, Erica. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you give a little bit of background on your current, business that you run as well, that you work in full time, as well as, we'll talk about some of the real estate stuff afterwards, but I'm super interested in the mental well-being of other human beings. So it's, interesting topic to discuss.
Absolutely, yeah. So thank you for having me, Matthew. So a little bit about me, I have been in startup small business my whole career. I started off in real estate. So the first startup I joined was a home builder locally here in Orange County. They had about 40 employees at that time, and I helped grow that company to over 200 employees.
Wow.
Over $200 million in revenue, and they ended up going IPO after 5 years. I was 23 at that time, so it was like, I'm 37 now, so it was a totally different time. I learned a ton. I worked under the CEO, who was also the founder of John Lang Homes locally here, and I worked under the CIO, the COO, all the C-suite executives. I learned a ton. Hired over 150 people for that real estate company, and more importantly, I worked my way up from an executive assistant to actually landing in project management and land acquisition, which I absolutely loved. Real estate runs in my family. I'm like third, fourth generation real estate. So I love seeing a plot of land and, actualizing that into a little, like, whether it's a master plan community or a subdivision community. I love everything from planning to architecture to design. It's super interesting. So that's where I started. And then I kind of explored throughout my career. I started a fintech company, and then I landed in healthcare. I've been in healthcare for the last 10 years. Most recently, I started a mental health company called Poppy Life Care, and we focus on holistic integrative health. So sort of like whole person approach, right? Looking at the mind, body, spirit connection, integrating things like mindfulness, meditation, yoga, movement therapy, nutritional counseling, behavioral therapy, customized to that individual. But of course, I still have my passion for real estate, and it's always been a passive way I can make income, and any way I can continue to sort of fuel that passion I'm excited about. So that's
absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
And speaking about the mental health aspect of things, everybody talks about how on social media everything's amazing, and everybody's making money and everything's perfect in everybody's lives, right? And then
obviously,
of course you meet the real
person. That's what social media says, right? Social media says perfect, right? We're all living perfect lives.
Yeah, that's the part. Everything's got a filter on it that's perfect too, and
right.
and you go through and you can start seeing other people and kind of comparing yourself, and I think that happens a lot, especially for younger kids now. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. I'm like, they're staying away from social media until they're 18 plus years old, but that whole aspect of things is really not talked about as much as it should be. And there's some, specific tips and tricks that people can go through, and realizing that, hey, if you're a real estate investor or business owner or entrepreneur, your whole life, you're taking hits nonstop. You're going to be dealing with trials and tribulations and problems and emotion and all kinds of things that can wear you down. And a lot of people have issues with that, getting over it. And there's some specific tips and tricks that I've learned massively over just taking the punches in the face, over time, to be able to deal with those types of issues, right? What are some of the things that you typically focus on? You mentioned yoga and meditation and things like that. How important is the health aspect and, some of these different tools that you give people to have that better mindset and that better, I'd say, ability to deal with everyday life, in general?
Yeah. I mean, everything, like you said, we're all humans. We're all on a journey, right? And that journey includes trials. It includes tribulation. we all have to overcome things. None of us get out of this life without trauma of some sort, right? It's like if you're just not going to get through it without that. So these tools and practices, yes, meditation is I say meditation is medication, right? I mean, it's in the same way you have to take medication every day. Meditation is that impactful if we consistently do it, right? Movement therapy, such as yoga, that's not the only other thing that can be done. Any type of movement, walking, we call it mindful walking, to help calm the mind. You know, for somebody like me, I'm a go, 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 as I'm sure you are, Matthew, you know, ambitious, you know, we like to do things. Right. And that's a strength, but that can be our greatest weakness. So sometimes I have to be very mindful and be like, okay, I gotta go for a walk, I gotta stop, I gotta like look at the, you know, literally smell the roses, you know, get some vitamin D, and you know, those simple tools, those simple practices, stopping in our day, having more balance, right? Listening to our body, tapping into how our body feels. You know, things like stretching, yoga, that helps release any trauma in the body. We don't realize when we go through things, all the stress and the tension that we carry, any emotional things we've gone through, we literally carry that in our bodies. So it's so important to release it, whether it is through some sort of exercise, yoga, stretching, so forth, and then even breath work. Breath work is so impactful. It's amazing how much we don't breathe in our days when we're stressed, right? And again, this is for, whether you're in real estate. I mean, again, I was in real estate for quite some time. It's a very stressful industry. I mean, I love it, but there's a lot of stress there, right? You know, being an entrepreneur, starting a business, whatever it may be, there's always stress. We're all dealing with it. So these are just simple tools to address complex challenges.
I find that same thing. I have a hard time turning my brain off because I'm very driven and wanting to get things done and focused on the task and being efficient with my time all the time. Instead of living in the moment like you should be and focusing, that's where true happiness is, right? It's like getting outside, like you said, and smelling the roses. I like to go garden in my garden and just be like, get outside for a minute and focus on that. If I didn't meditate before I went in the house every night, there's no way that I'd be able to mentally be in the moment with my kids as well. And sometimes you wake up as an entrepreneur in the morning stressed out, and if you don't find a way to ground yourself with that breathing you're talking about and meditation to clear your mind, it's hard to focus on, hey, these are the things I really do need to get done today, and focus on the important items instead of the stresses that, you know, will drag your attention and drag your efficiency down. And I think a lot of us don't put ourselves in the right position for success there, right? We don't get the right sleep. We don't get out and get sunlight first thing in the morning and have those excess walks that you take where you're just like, I'm going to go look at the clouds for a minute. You know what I mean? So,
totally.
And it's super important to do those things. Otherwise, you won't be successful. And sometimes entrepreneurs, we look at this as, I'm being inefficient by adding those things in. But you're absolutely harming yourself massively by not doing those items. I remember back, I probably weighed an extra 30 pounds more, and something was missing. I'm just like, you know, and I started walking. I have a treadmill desk right behind me right here. I just constantly walk all day long, like 15,000 steps a day, and every Zoom meeting I'm walking, and it's amazing how much better you feel when you do those little things that are mental well-being items out there, and how much more efficient you are.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And it's and you know, you mentioned, you know, you have 2 kids, right? It's even, and with kids these days, I mean, I think the cell phone came out when I was like 14 or something, right? Remember those big cell phones, like the ones that were
the Zach Morris phones?
So that was the cell phone that a friend got when I was like 13 or 14, right? Nice. And then like I think the Moto, Hello Moto or whatever, that was like that came out when I was like 16, right? So I don't think iPhones were like, maybe by senior year there was an iPhone.
I was excited about the Nokia phone thing, the little flip phone
Nokias,
thing.
You know, I love it. So, but it's totally different for your kids, right? Kids today, like Gen Z, like they are inundated with media. Inundated. Right. I mean, the average person, and this is an old stat, I'm sure it's higher, the average person absorbs about 11 hours of media a day. That's a lot of media, right? So for youngsters, and even for us, we're overstimulated with all of this stuff. You know, we're in a digital world, which, again, there's great things about that, but then unfortunately it's shifted how we operate in society. And for kids, you know, most kids are on their phones 5-6 hours a day, right? And that is doing things to the brain too. Every time we pick up the phone, that's like a dopamine hit, right?
Yeah,
So
the dopamine overdoses are huge to get rid of. Like, we're going camping in a few weeks, and it's like I can't wait to not have cell phone reception. So
you know, and it's true. So that's where it's like some of this stuff that is basics, like getting sun, going for a walk, we kind of lost, and so we have to be extra mindful, just given the society we kind of live in today. So that's some of the stuff we do.
I agree, and I think it's even more important for entrepreneurs and business owners especially because if they have a family and kids, you're
Yeah.
already on that overstimulation mode where you're like, focus, go, 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 go. And being able to take a step back and be grounded is super important for efficiency purposes and solving problems that exist. And then being able to lead your family in the same way to, if your kids are in that same boat of too much overstimulation, you're like, if you're mindful of it, you can help your family and kids be mindful of it as well. And that mentality switch is huge.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it isn't easy to do, So I mean, otherwise we'd all be like really, really, But it's kind of a shift in how we have to, train ourselves to operate day in, day out, right? And
Right.
especially as entrepreneurs, especially as busy professionals, because we have so much life. I mean, I know I have to do it too, so I have to walk the walk and talk the talk here. After this call, I'll be going for a walk. So.
Nice, yeah. I'm hitting the weights after this, so that way I can get rid of my stress. So that's the best way I deal with that. And I think that the health aspect of things is super important to dial that in, because it gives you the energy to be able to counterbalance some of this overstimulation and consistency of stress in people's lives, right? And I think going back to the real estate aspect of this, I think that it's more stressful business than a lot of other business. A lot of business is stressful, but real estate, there's so many changes that can occur that wipe you out. And just like any business, team members will harm you. You will lose money on a deal. Things will fall apart on you, and you have to be able to find the solution, because there's always typically a solution to those problems, and being able to move through them is key. When you are working under these different COOs and CFOs, I'm assuming that's a massive amount of amazing experience learning from some of these topwig people in the real estate industry. What were some of the things that you saw them do, or how did you what do you think you learned most from them going into the real estate arena when you first started out in that space, and what got you excited about real estate as you were working with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, you're absolutely right. It was a fire hose of information, at 23 years old, and I learned probably decades of information in a consolidated amount of time working with these guys in their 50s that have been doing this for 30 plus years. Each one of them had a routine and a structure, right? And every single one of them, like our president, for example, he didn't get in till 9 a.m. because he had a full routine from like 6 to 9, and he used to tell me, don't bother me before 9, because he's doing all of these things, right? And talk about stress. I mean, number one, they had a startup. Number two, they were in real estate. You're building homes. There's a lot of liability, right? I mean, with real estate, there can be a lot of risk as well. Like you said, losing money on deals and things. So each one of them is very good about boundaries and having structure in their day, and kind of balancing, some of that work-life stuff from what I learned,
That makes a lot of sense. And you said, I believe you mentioned previously to me, that you were working in land acquisitions and with that job. How did you like that? How did that turn out? What did you learn in that arena from the land side? What kind of strategies were you deploying there to you're buying all the land for the new construction builds? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, I supported the president of land acquisition at that time in acquiring different land within actually San Juan Capistrano and Corona.
Okay.
And so, it's interesting what goes into land acquisition. Number one, lots of money to be made, right? Like, you get a good deal on a piece of land, you build up, you can sell these homes. In this case, it was a subdivision of 18 homes, right? They bought it for $22 million, I believe, or roughly around that amount. And then they sold, 18 plus homes for about $2-3 million. So they, they double, tripled their investment there. And and I think they continue to add in some additional, sort of improvements in late as well. So what I
Okay.
learned, I learned a ton. It was great. Working with the city is a whole, process in itself. Every city's different, right? And what I really valued about working with that home builder is quality, right? So quality over quantity. And even, as I've mentioned to you too, even working in now with property management or Airbnb listings I've had, that's the teachings I've had from that group I've applied even in my own, projects to this day. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I think, I love the land acquisition business if it's done correctly, depending on where it is, because of those city issues you're mentioning, it can be highly lucrative. Like California is a much more difficult market to get things approved and the red tape done, and it can take,
super,
years sometimes to get stuff approved, depending on the city, right?
yep,
And so, if you're dealing with the city of LA, you're in a much worse spot doing something like that than maybe a Corona or something like that might have a different, mindset where they want to expand the city and they're very friendly to developers. But what's
yep,
really cool that I love about the land acquisition aspect of this is if you buy a certain plot of land like that, you can develop the basic infrastructure and the lots and outline those, get all that stuff approved and ready to build, and then
yep.
sell at that point to one of the big builders that'll build all
Ooh.
the stuff for you. And you can kill it right up front without having to take the vertical risk. But
That's a great idea. Yeah, that's a great, much easier, right? Then you hand it over, but you've done a lot of the baseline, legwork, right? Getting the
right.
building permits, like getting all that. That's great.
Yeah, I think that's probably the hardest part actually, that the vertical integration of the build after you've done all that site work and everything else and the ground development and the plumbing and all the streets and
Permitting.
that stuff is way harder to do for the planning perspective and everything
Totally.
else, and way higher risk because you still have to get stuff approved. Like you don't know what's going to be approved. Once it's
Yep.
approved and they're just building houses, yeah, there's another level of risk there, right? You have
Yep.
construction risk from labor and contractors screwing you or making mistakes, materials list from prices going through the roof through inflation
Yep.
and stuff like that, and then market risk on the back end of that too, where what happens if the crash happens right in the middle of your development, right? So sometimes a lot of my real estate investor friends like to go through and just do it to the land piece only and say, you take on all the rest of the risk. I know what my risk is because at very least I could resell this land for what I bought it for if they're
Yes.
buying correctly, And so it's really interesting play. Now you mentioned also you used to run an Airbnb as well. How did
Yes.
you like that side of things? Seeing instead of the land acquisition, working with some other bigwigs, you were doing this
Yeah.
on your own on the short-term rental side, right? So how did you like that?
Yeah, so obviously a total shift. I was with that home builder for about 5 years, and then I've got the entrepreneurial spirit or sickness, whatever you want to call it.
Sickness, yeah. The
And
better
so,
word, sickness.
yeah, and so real estate's always been kind of something on the side I've continued to do as I was building other companies, and so I did start an Airbnb about, gosh, I don't know, like 5, 7 years ago, and took a little condo in Palm Springs that needed to be renovated it. It's 500 square foot lot or little, condo. It
Nice.
bought it for like $100,000.
Awesome.
Put in some money into that. Started Airbnb-ing it. Made up to $6,000 a month minimum. I really templatized that process as I was telling you. So I didn't work a whole lot on that, and I didn't have to hire anybody. So I just took on
Did
all
it
the
yourself
process.
and took the management.
Yeah, I just had templates for everything. I had templates and process. Whether it was when we had a new guest come in, like everything was templatized, like exact instructions for check-in, check-out. Easiest money I've made. Not doing very much. So loved that. And then that property too increased in value, so it tripled in value. So it's now worth $350,000, $400,000. So made money on top of money. It was like compounded, interest.
That's awesome. And what did you learn when you were going out and actually doing the operational aspect of the business as a whole? Where the short-term rental aspect, templating, great. But do you have any trials and tribulations or problems running the other aspects, like the accounting piece of that, or the marketing aspect of the short-term rentals, or did kind of Airbnb handle that side of things, or tenant issues and stuff like that could come up that you had to deal with at all?
Yeah, that's a good question. We, of course, there's some like customer service, stuff that came up. Like, I think the biggest thing that happened was in, this was kind of a bummer, in Palm Springs during summer, the AC went out and we had a guest there and it was like 105 degrees. So, that was like the biggest thing that happened. We had to get AC guys out there, the next day. What I did, of course, is I like gave them a discount on the stay. I made them happy. They were happy.
Right.
They gave us a great review. Still had an amazing experience. And so yeah, that stuff comes up. That comes up with anything you do, right? And for me, in anything I do, even with my mental health company, client experience, customer experience is number one, right? So I always do my best to provide a good experience there. Accounting, we hired an accountant. We started an LLC for that, so all of the money went into the LLC. And yeah, we had some basic accounting, had hired a bookkeeper to help manage that. And then, what was the other question you had?
Just
marketing.
Different trials and tribulations you learned in on that side with problems with people and stuff. I think so.
Yeah, in marketing, I didn't spend a whole lot of marketing. Airbnb took care of a lot, like having good pictures, having a good description, like getting good reviews. Those were like, because we were a super host, so then they prioritize your listing if you're a super host. So.
I think, I really love Airbnb investing, or short-term rental investing. I'll call it. It's not, I said the wrong term. It's not Airbnb investing. It's short-term rental investing. And, and there's hundreds of platforms out there, not just Airbnb, of course. And, I took the stance of I'll never manage a short-term rental again, because on an individual one-off basis, it's not too bad, right? But when you're dealing with 10, 20, 30 short-term rentals, it's like, whoa, that's like running multiple hotels at the same time. Just like you had to deal with the AC issue, if there's a plumbing issue, if someone brings in bed bugs, if there's, some, damage that occurs, there's anything, it's always an emergency, because you've got to make sure your reviews are in line and that those tenants are happy, so they give you the positive reviews and you can keep your super host status, which gets you more stuff. And I think the marketing is a lot more important, like you're saying, having proper pictures, having it designed correctly with professional lighting and professional pictures, and all the extra throw pillows that I love to hate being a male, right? Going, we don't need pillows, So I tell my wife all the time, why do we have all these pillows? So, but but I shouldn't be the one designing these things at all. So I'm the
that's why you have your wife.
Where's the math? So, but and then you do deal with these trials and tribulations with tenants and crazy people. We had someone one time calling us nonstop saying they couldn't get into the actual unit, and the code to the front door, that's a push button lock, wasn't working. And then when we looked at the video camera, they're pushing the video camera button over and over again instead, and saying it's not working, and I'm like, how did these people survive life so far? Like they can't get into they're pressing the doorbell, like the video doorbell. You're like, and then we had one guy that we were running him in one in Garden Grove, California, which of course after the fact the city shut down the Airbnb market here, mostly because of the hotel lobbies next to Disneyland. And we were killing it. We were making a good arbitrage over the current rents that we were paying. We didn't own the house. We were doing a rental arbitrage. And we had one tenant that came in with his family and younger teenage kids, and a mom and a dad, and they called and they were screaming at my wife that was managing it because the baseboards by the trash can were dirty that the maid missed, right? And so I was like, hey, I'm going to go teach a class. I'll come back over there and check it out for you and see what we can do, And I go over there and he's like all frantic, pissed off, and 6'3" dude, it's like huge dude, and he's like, I can't believe this. This place is filthy. And I was like, well, show me what's up, man, and I'll see what we can do to try to fix that. I'm sorry if the maids missed some stuff or something. And so we go there and he points out the baseboard, and I was like, oh, okay, is there anything else? And he's like, no, but there's this horrible. And I'm like, you're getting this mad over like a baseboard, dude? Like, I was like, look, well, I was like, I can't, I can come clean it or something. It'll take like 3 seconds to do a wipe on that, but like, okay, and I was like, is there anything else? And he literally was like, I want a full refund. I want my money back. This is not happening anymore. And I was like, man, if you want a refund, like you got to go through Airbnb for that. There's a process you can go through and do that aspect. And he literally was in the front yard and took out his front teeth on me and squared up on me to fight and was like ready to fight me in front of his family. And I was like, bro, I'm not fighting you over a baseboard that's wrong. I'll bring in a cleaner. We'll clean the house, full house again for you. Go to dinner and we'll handle it. At the end of the day, he gives me a hug and he's like, I'm sorry, man. I'm an MMA fighter. I get kind of heated sometimes. And, I was like, great. I almost got beat up by an MMA fighter on my way to teach a class. That's awesome. And he ended up giving me a hug and a 5-star review. I was like, yeah, you get 2 stars, bro. You try to fight me over a baseboard. Like, you're insane. So, but, these are the kind of crazy things where, bringing it back to the mindset, I had to have complete emotional control to de-escalate the situation and just be super friendly, no matter if this dude is squaring up on me in the front yard or not, and being able to have that. If I wasn't meditating consistently and I didn't have that emotional control in that situation, it could have went the total wrong way, with police and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Absolutely.
And so it's super important to have that while you're running these roadblocks, I'll say, in business.
Totally. And I mean, and you're right. The customer service side can be challenging with that. I mean, I have another quick story. Is this one guy I had that came through, because when you were talking, it reminded me of it. We didn't have he wanted a grapefruit knife. And I was like, I'm sorry, we don't have a grapefruit knife. And then he told me like the ice wasn't cold enough. And then like there was like all this list of stuff that just kind of was a little outrageous. He's like, he ended up he said I had to go buy a grapefruit knife. I'm like, we have knives, I don't know what a grapefruit knife is, and but and then it was like all these little things. I can't remember. It was like those lists, and he ended up wanting a full refund. And yes, we did go through Airbnb, but I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't a big, escalated thing.
Yeah, right.
So I was just like, this is ridiculous, man. Like, I'm sorry we don't have a grapefruit knife, but there's plenty of knives, all right? I'm not sure what to tell you about the ice, but I apologize. It's not cool. You know what I mean?
The ice isn't cold enough. That seems like a joke for later on. That,
I know. I was like, but is it frozen? Like, I don't understand.
Right.
So, but to your point, in customer service, sometimes when it's human to human, we have to, like, especially when we're operating a business, like, we have to, like you said, remain grounded, remain calm, right?
Right.
And de-escalate things as much as possible, right? Within a boundary, of course. If people are getting crazy, then we bring in other folks to help us out.
Right, and I think having that mental strategy where you have those tips and tricks and techniques, making sure you get proper sleep, making sure your health is in check, making sure that you are meditating consistently, you're feeding yourself the right, I'll call it energy.
Yes.
Food is either giving you energy or taking it away, depending on what you eat, right?
Yep.
And being able to go on those walks and have that mental regimen like your previous COOs and CFOs would do in the morning, where here's their routine. He's probably working out in the morning, meditating in the morning, spending time with the kids, doing exact specific things, saying no one is interrupting this time, I don't care what it is, and being able to make sure you treat yourself right in those ways is, I think, the biggest key, because we all know the biggest reason why we falter mentally is because we're not treating ourselves right. We're adhering to what everybody else wants. We're going through and pushing ourselves too far for other people, and to be able to succeed in business. And the only way to really do that correctly is to give yourself that own personal attention and say, no, there's no limits. There's going to be a boundary here. I'm going to set these lines in the sand of what I'm not going to compromise in my life, because it's so easy to compromise, especially when you are in alligator mode and you're constantly focused on fighting a problem or an issue that business, it's going to come up no matter what, nonstop every day. I laugh sometimes because I'm like, did I just deal with like 12 problems that are like huge problems before noon on a Monday it's like, did that just happen? And so, having that grounded mentality is super important. And so how do people want to reach out to get, that mental help or get involved to be able to get help from your company and stuff? how do they actually go about doing that? How can they reach you for doing that?
Yeah. So you can check us out at poppylifecare.com. You can email me at erica@poppylifecare.org. We're on social media at poppylifecare. We've got great reviews. We're contracted here locally with CalOptima Health. So if you have CalOptima Health, it's 100% free or covered by your insurance. And I think something you said, Matthew, that's really important too is like we have to put on our own mask first, right? Before we can even give. And that's something I have to be really mindful of too, just in the work I do. I have to make sure because I'm supporting others and giving, and so I have to put my own mask on first, right? And whether it's we're doing real estate, we're working in healthcare, it's across the board, right? And we have a family, we've got kids. We have to be our biggest champions. We have to put ourselves first. We have to. It's like I am number one. And then last thing I'll say is something we talked about in the beginning is who we surround ourselves with, right? So important. We can be doing exercising, we can be doing all these things, but if we're surrounded by people, our environment's toxic, it will also harm us as well.
That energy will literally rub off on you. So being around the right people, I've found going to masterminds, going to other networking events consistently, being around like-minded people that have the same positive energy and positive mindset is massive for long-term growth and for your own mental well-being, because it's like that energy will go together. If someone's negative, it's the same thing. You will go with that negativity and it's hard to get away. It's like if I know my spouse, my wife is mad at me, of course I'm going to be negative and be like, like I could feel it, even though she's pretending like nothing's wrong, of course.
Obviously.
Right? So
she's fine,
course,
right?
Yeah, she's fine. The specific term, fine, right? So, and you realize like you feel the negativity or that energy and you can tell that it's not fine, so, and it's the same thing with everybody else in your life. When your wife or your kids are happy, you're in a better atmosphere. When your business partners or other people that you're working with are happy and in a positive attitude, it helps you in that mindset massively. So I really appreciate what you do there for other people. And, thank you so much for coming on the show today to share that experience with people. It's been, a breath of fresh air and something we don't talk about much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me. So
thanks. And if anybody wants to know more about real estate investing or how to do your right homework on your deals or, analyzing deals, we have tons of tips and tricks and strategies and downloadables on our website, MathewOwens.com with 1T in Matthew. And I hope this helped you guys with your mindset and with being able to push through adversity as a business owner, as entrepreneurs, or as everyday people going through life. So thanks so much. Appreciate it, Erica. And I look forward to, talking with you soon.
Likewise. Thank you.
Do you want to learn how to create financial freedom in your life through real estate and take your investing business to the next level? If so, you can follow us in one of the following ways. First, you can take one of our free webinars on how to analyze property, how to raise capital for real estate, and how to market and find deals. 3 of the key pillars to becoming a successful real estate investor. Number 2, you can join us on our mailing list where you'll get tips and tricks on real estate investing directly to your inbox. And number 3, you can take our 6-month real estate course that teaches you every aspect of real estate investing you can think of, and more importantly, create financial freedom in your life through real estate investing strategies that I teach. If you want a master's in real estate in 6 months, this course is for you. We're going to go over how to raise money, promissory notes, syndications, fixing and flipping, buy and hold investing, tax and legal structures, self-directed retirement accounts, financial education, how to run a business, how to market and find your deals, and most importantly, how to create that financial freedom in your life so that you can stop trading your time for money and create passive real estate cash flow that you can live off of. If you're interested, go ahead and click on one of the links below, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the other side.